All right. This is our very first podcast, guys. All right. So let's start this off. This is going to be the Panther Airsoft folding table talk. Um, yeah, this is episode one. Why did we name it folding table talk? Actually, before we start, I'm going to go skip ahead here. My name is Poi. I am going to be your host for the folding table talk here. And we have Tack down there. Hello. And then we got Mac up there. Hi. Um, so let's get right on to it. So why are we here, guys? How did this happen? Let's talk about this first. Like, what are we doing here, and what is our goals for this sort of like? Actually, let's start off. Why did we name it Folding Table Talk to begin with?
Okay, well, here, I'll
Um,
take that one.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, okay. So, well, obviously, from anyone that has been to Panther, you can kind of see that we've got quite a few tables around. Some of them are in good condition, some of them are in less than good condition. And, a big trend with the tables are they're either folding over on themselves or they're just falling over. So, a lot of people have brought it on themselves to bring their own folding tables, the ones
Yep.
that,
Just like
pop
me,
out
I had a few in my days.
yeah, yeah, boy, exactly.
Yeah.
So, a common trend throughout the field right now at the moment is folding table, and I guess the emphasis on portability.
And you got anything to add to that, Tack?
well, that pretty much hits the nail, right on the head there. I feel like the name in itself kind of will play together in the future. Just how, it's folding table, so we can set up kind of anywhere. And just like Mac was saying, if you go to Panther, you'll definitely see a couple of folding tables,
Literally.
folded, literally folded over.
I think the
Yeah.
field's probably taken probably folding tables in the last like almost 10 years I've been there
Yeah.
that I've purchased, and then it breaks and I'm like, okay, I'll just leave it here.
Well, do you guys remember that one that Laura and Rainbow were standing on and
Yeah,
that one fell over? Like,
Yeah,
boy, I think that was
yeah,
your birthday or something, man.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So there you go. That's
So,
basically why we named the show Folding Table Talk.
mm,
Why why are we doing an airsoft, like a Panther airsoft related talk sort of show? Well, this is like a podcast basically, but like to start it off, like uh at the field, me, Mac, and Tack were talking about like doing some sort of a talk show sort of a deal where we talk about anything airsoft related, anything happening at Panther, and all the current events that are happening in the west coast of BC, because like every time you talk about like airsoft related, it's usually back east. There's not a lot of like news that comes out on the west and west coast basically. um like what we had an entire discussion about this on the weekend, and then we finally approached uh Panther management, which is basically Elliot, and we basically asked him, hey, can we do a like some sort of like talk show, include, and we want to include Panther in it. And then he was like, yeah, I wish he was here to talk about it too, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I
but
know,
he
I know.
said yes, he would love to, but at the same time, a lot of people actually approached him to do it before.
Mhm.
And then I told him, it's like, well, you got like me, you got Mag, and then you got Tack. Both of you are basically, you basically live on the field on the weekend.
It's
And during the
essentially,
week.
Yeah,
And
and
during
then
the
for me, I come on a Sunday, and then I
Yeah.
yeah.
basically like, like a lot of, because I've been there for like almost 10 years now,
Oh,
Oh,
and
wait,
a
really?
lot like the scenery has changed a lot. Like every year, it's always like something happens or something's there. So all three of us combined, like it's a pretty good amount of like not gossip that we talk about, but we hear a lot of things in the field, and
oh
it it,
yeah.
it 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 echoes, and then we'll hear it, and then we'll be like, okay, yeah, I mean that's basically it. Like you guys want to add to why we want to start off the show?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Go for it.
to add to that, it's just like we definitely hear things and we definitely see things.
Oh yeah.
just because of our influence and just what we do involving Panther and stuff like that, we are exposed to a lot of stuff. Some stuff we can't talk about just because it's too ridiculous to even mention. But if you go on the Airsoft Canada forums or any kind of airsoft forums, um, you'd have a pretty good guess of what kind of goes on. I believe that meme page Super Mega Airsoft Tactical News puts it together pretty well. And just to add to the whole reason for it is that there's just been a real lacking of sort of kind of discussions happening on the West Coast. I know we see a lot of people talking about airsoft and whatnot in general, but a lot of those guys originate from the East Coast just because that's where a lot of things are happening. And I feel like not everything they say kind of uh, relates to exactly what we do, just because we don't have as many events or certain situations are different and stuff like that. Um, uh, to before, but to so that we don't get off topic or whatever it is. That's pretty much the gist of it there. Mac, if you got anything to add to that.
Well, it's basically like you guys said. Like honestly, after our discussion this weekend, for anybody listening, it's basically, um, Panther being one of just if or is one of the biggest spots to go and play airsoft and everything like that. It really needs to be utilized more. And the fact that we all have been together and we're all feeling the same thing. Like we're over here a quite tight knit community, large in fact too. I mean, we've all been there on the summers. When we get something like 300 people there, and it's absolutely insane. Like you can't, you know, like and one of those reasons being the reason that we all started caring so much about the field in general, right? Like just having a home there, like living there on the weekend and everything like that. It's a great place to go, and it should be recognized as such, and it can be greater. And hopefully this is just a step in that direction, because um, there's a lot of things that we would like to be able to do for the airsoft community. And like you guys were saying about the East Coast, a lot of that stuff is over there. We've got something like 4 provinces in the middle of us, guys. Like
Yeah.
like I would love to go and play over there. I love reading those forums, and those guys are quite insightful. They insightful. They know a lot about the game. And I won't lie, I'm on there, I'm reading it, but you know, uh, it's quite a separation and stuff. So we need to be able to hammer out, a little corner, a little corner of Canada for ourselves, like we are. So that's it.
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt there, but to add to sort of that about the community kind of thing, it's definitely all of us have something that we can do to add to the community. I believe all of us have experience in that. Boy, with your airsoft team, or your airsoft group, you guys try to have a positive influence on the airsoft community, and just like how Mac and I are just trying to sort of help grow the community in a sense. So that's really what our main kind of angle and our goal is when it comes to this kind of stuff. Just because the more people there are, the bigger this, I guess you want to call it a sport or a hobby or whatever. Everyone has their differing opinion on that specific topic. We won't go into that right
We'll get
now.
into it later. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but and with that, we gotta, or at least I feel, and I believe we all agree, is that we gotta cultivate that, just because the community is what saves these kinds of activities, just because it's a very fragile activity, I would say, at least for us, up here in Canada. So being a very community oriented sort of I guess show is what I would call this kind of thing. Is I'd really like to highlight a lot of the positives in our community as well as the negatives. Those are always going to show up,
Those
and
are always funny. Yeah.
Yep.
and and so kind of use it as an opportunity to learn. I know that we have a lot of things that happened in the past, especially with what's been going on. I won't go into details right now, but anyone who kind of pays attention with current events knows exactly what I'm talking about. So with that said, I think we can move on to the topics here.
Yeah. Oh, actually, before we move into topics, we didn't introduce ourselves yet.
Oh, well,
um,
there you go. It's
yeah, Mac,
first
go fire
episode.
away, go. Introduce
Okay.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hi. My name is Makoto Brennan. I call myself Mac for short. Makes it a lot easier, especially once you know who my brother is. I'm sure you guys have seen me around on the field. If not, I'm more than happy to talk to you guys. And I have been playing airsoft now on and off. I won't lie. I started with the BB guns in the backyard with my brother down there on the bottom of the screen, but just in the backyard, and had a huge falling out. Didn't play for a long time. I never got into like a real field situation and everything like that until probably about 3 years ago. And my older brother there had been playing about a year longer than I have, and just finally convinced me, come play Call of Duty in real life. And I went out, and since the first day I got hooked, and we're here now.
And you're under which team?
Oh, so I joined Trainwreck Airsoft, and I help run the team now. After being a part of the team now for over 2 years, my brother brought me into the game. He brought me onto the team, and I love those guys. I love the community, and again, it's part my team, it's part the community from the field, and just the sport in general, or the hobby in general. Like it's a lot of fun for me, and yeah, I want to give it my all.
All right. And let's introduce Tack. Go ahead.
Okay, guys. My name's Jack. It's short for Takumi. Mac's older brother. Yeah, you guys might get us confused, just because the younger looking one.
Understood.
Yeah, that me. For probably the first
Poor,
2 months.
and yeah, poor boy understands. Okay, and so with that, like Mac was saying, I've been playing airsoft for quite a bit, but my exposure to it was the Tokyo Marui MP5, and I'm talking about the first one where you put the BBs in the top. The high cap was with the gun. So that was my first experience. On and off, life happens, and then come around 2015, 2016, I got reintroduced into it with my friends. Ran into a lot of people at Panther, and then realized this is something that I really want to get into. I was played with it before, and I really enjoyed the community. uh, I played paintball a little bit before, so it was a little easier to get right into. And also just how cheap it is. Now, mind you, there's an asterisk around that, but
Yeah,
how
yeah,
cheap
yeah,
it is
yeah.
to
Definitely
get
some
we
into.
all
airsoft
know.
going on.
Yeah, exactly. Relative to a lot of the other hobbies that I play, just because I'm a little bit of an enthusiast on a lot of things. So that's kind of why I got into airsoft. And just as like Mac, I help run Trainwreck Airsoft. I'm a team member of Trainwreck Airsoft, and what Mac and I do is we kind of help manage the team to help push a lot of community orientated things. We just excuse me, we just like trying to make everything sort of based on the community, just because we know that that's a positive community is a great community, and when you can look out for each other, that's a big bonus. And for having the size of the team that we do and the presence that we do, especially at Panther, the more positive you are, the better, just because you want to share that, you don't want to share any kind of negativity. That's something that we want to quash. So with that, that's me, and that's my aim here. And yeah, all right, Poi, we'll go to you.
All right. And my name is Poi. I go by Poi. So I've been playing airsoft since probably around 2010, like late 2010 ish, somewhere around there. Got into airsoft. Not because I had an airsoft. I knew what airsoft was back like early 2000s, but 10 years later, I decided to get into it because my coworkers of mine were saying, "Hey, you want to come and join airsoft with us?" I'm like, I don't know. If I get into a hobby, I go knee deep into it,
Yeah,
and
you go full
I
out.
just
Yeah.
won't stop. None of them play anymore, by the way.
Yeah,
And
I,
here I am managing meme team and
with a trailer
yeah,
full of guns.
with a
Like,
trailer full, yeah, a container
a
full of guns,
40-foot trailer.
40-foot container full of guns. Basically, when I got in, yeah, they already had their gear and everything, so I didn't like, as a guy who like likes to show off a lot, like I didn't want to get outshone. I'm like, okay, I'm not, I didn't go in there as a rental, by the way. I
Went
I
full
joined in,
dad,
already
full
bought my
dad.
first gun, already bought
Oh, right.
camos, already bought chest rigs and everything, and then my first game was literally just me, like, with my first gun and with my first like gear, which I
Ah,
still
you
have, by the
know,
way.
of course. No, it's good, good, good.
Yeah, and yeah, and back then I eventually took over managing their entire team, which is basically the Walking Dead Airsoft, and that's basically a disbanded team now. It's been so long. I still have the old
That's a
patches.
that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, so like I probably managed it for about 4 years until everybody was gone, no one was showing up. I disbanded it, and then eventually moved up to meme team, which is basically a super tight like group of friends, and yeah, and basically we just make memes out of it. If you guys, yeah, fast forward to to now, like I basically like have a 40-foot container full of guns that is parked currently at Panther, and it is like a nice thing to see at the field because it's like sort of like it's almost like what is it like a tourist attraction, right? Because everyone sees
Landmark.
it and
Yeah,
everyone's like,
let,
oh my
let's be
god.
real.
Uh,
Let's be real here, boy.
that's
It's
a
a
pan.
museum.
That's no.
No. There's some
That's
rarities
one
in
way of
there.
putting it. That's
Hey,
one
hey,
way of
hey.
putting
I'm
it.
just
Yeah.
saying. There's a real sword in there.
Yep.
Oh,
You know,
true.
you want to touch that
True.
baby? There's a real sword,
You better be careful. Antique
Yeah.
Roadshow's gonna show up and try and buy some of your guns or something like
baby.
that. Like, boy, you don't even know what you have here. Like,
No, I don't, and I ain't selling it.
let me tell you, okay, this is worthless. $50.
Anyways, that's my life story there of airsoft. Yeah, started like the ground. So I started airsoft running basically, not a walk. Running,
Mhm.
I knew what it was. Like I did my research. Probably a lot of people are like that. Every one of us has different experiences of starting airsoft. For me, it was like I have all my gear. Let's go. And then for some people it's rentals. For some people it's it's a different story, right?
Well, from the sounds of it, it definitely seems like Mac and yourself can kind of relate to the whole,
That's right. That's right. I'm waiting
yeah,
for you to pick up the
yeah.
flair there, bro. Hey, yo, you
Oh,
really need to get into this. And
well,
it's like, oh my
yeah,
god.
I feel like you two kind of can relate onto the whole running start, while I'm sort of a more of a slow crawl kind of person. So,
Slow crawl is right. It's like
All
baby
right.
crawl.
Let's move up to our topics that we want to talk about here. Holy cow, it's
okay, yeah.
all right. With talk shows like these, we want to start off with different topics that we have. We call sort of gather all together the topics that are really like important throughout the week. And the biggest one right now is, of course, we're doing a talk show for Panther. Panther, reopened after COVID-19 restrictions have been, lifted. Well, not lifted. We're still at phase one.
Mhm.
As of right now, we're at phase one, meaning that we're allowed to open businesses and maintain a sort of a social distance ruling in place. Like this weekend, you guys notice anything different that's happening? Who wants to go first?
Well,
Mac, you can go lead with that one.
okay, well, yeah. So basically, with the COVID restrictions, or just with some of the restrictions being lifted, us being allowed to open was really great. I know a lot of people were itching to get out there and play, and being cooped up at home all the time, both days on the weekend. When some people would get one day, some people would get both days. Like I know I saw a lot of happy faces out to be
Yeah.
out. Now, that being said, we do understand the restrictions and the guidelines that are put out, and safety measures have been implemented at the field. If anyone has been there, I'm sure you guys are aware and have seen and been a part of all the changes and awkward changes, because I don't want to say it's like something that's going to stick around forever, but it's definitely something that we need to do at the moment. So I really appreciate everyone that did take it seriously, and if not seriously, just kind of participated in the socially distancing of each other, and just some of the hiccups there as we tried to roll games out and everything. I know games being called in, games being implemented is one of our weaknesses sometimes, but we are working on that. And I honestly was super proud of all the young referees that were running around and making sure that each group was playing a game, making sure that people were staying apart. And yeah, so from that, Tack, do you want to add anything on to what's been happening at the field there this past weekend?
Okay, well, just to kind of elaborate a little more, um, just to talk about on the podcasting here is with the Panther reopening, some of the safety measures that we put in place is a lot more highlighted signage. So arrows on the ground and stuff like that, specific markings so that people can kind of identify easily where they should be standing. We're still following the 50-person restriction. So unfortunately, what that means is that game sizes are limited to 25 versus 25, just because we can't go any bigger than 50.
Actually,
Um,
let me interrupt you to correct that. The game size is 25 people max, and then it's like split between 15 by 15.
oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, something like that. So you can't
Okay.
have more than 20. Like if it's yeah, you can't have more than 30 people in a team basically, or not in a team in an entire game.
Game
Okay.
group.
And
Okay,
then
so you're not
and then
like
it's
what we said
divided in
earlier.
15 on red, 15 on blue, basically.
Oh, is that what we did? I thought we put down
Yes.
25 X's. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks for correcting me on that then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we gotta make sure we're on top of that. Yeah.
yeah. So well, I personally didn't put the X's down. That was Elliot.
Yeah.
I apologize on that.
It
Yeah,
honestly
all
it did
mind
work
you.
out very well throughout the
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of people were respecting it. A lot of people kind of took the sort of serious atmosphere around it just because those things are implemented. Obviously, a lot of people, have been hearing, what's been going on in the news, with a lot of these protests and stuff like that. And so, that sort of error of respect sort of can kind of disappear. But I really appreciate a lot of the people who who've been anticipating and really been wanting to come out to play to keep up with that, because that's so something like that can easily disappear, especially when people get frustrated and angry and stuff like that. But everything was moving really smoothly. Again, like Max says, we're really proud of the young referees, keeping up with the game times. I understand it can be really tough just because you're trying to not only keep the regular games moving, just like in the normal stresses, but now you have the increased worries of the whole COVID crisis and stuff like that. So the referees themselves have to keep physically distancing. One of the biggest things actually that we had to implement is just people not touching other people's things. So
Hmm.
when it comes to like lost and found or gear and stuff like that, we've had to implement a whole thing where people just leave it. If people know where it is, to let one of us, one of the people working or one of the people out there to identify it, so that we can go and pick it up ourselves. Just because we don't want people touching other people's things, to help um, decrease any kind of spread or transmission that can happen, just because we will take our own safety precautions in picking up certain items and stuff like that. Um, and with Mac and I, as Poi was saying, we all live there, so we check the field often, and you'd be surprised what turns up on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And so with that, Panther is operating basically at like what you would call normal. We have the concession still running, mind you, with the spacing that's required. Um,
And like to add to the concession being open, the Hart family is doing a pretty good job abiding by the government's rule
Hmm.
of serving meals and stuff. You got like face
Oh,
masks,
Leo's are
gloves.
doing a
They
great
go
job.
above and beyond, and it's
Yeah.
awesome because like number one thing that you gotta keep in mind as well is like you gotta fuel some of these players as well, right? Because you're exerting a lot of
Exactly.
energy. You need
Yeah.
exactly.
drinks, you need some
You're
sort
out
of
there all
meal.
day.
Yeah, you're out
Like,
there all day, so
some of the
hats off to the
kids.
Hart
I know they.
family to keeping that running. Um, just to add to like the COVID stuff, like since I was the media guy, I'm usually the media guy who does the live stream stuff. I had father and son duo there that was there. They're happy that they're playing airsoft because they had literally nothing to do at home, and it's good to see smiling faces everywhere. Like the reception for me is like a lot of people have been cooped up at home for months, and then now they come out here to play. There's not a lot of like hot-headed or heated arguments or anything like that. Everyone's just happy to be out there, and it's awesome to see smiles on the face like that. And I want like the father and son wanted to take photos, and then he goes, "Oh, can you take our photo?" And then I think uh one of them goes, "Oh, I'll take," and then he's like, "Oh wait, I can't touch anything." It's curve into that like mode of like you can't touch anything, right? So I came in and be like, "You got an iPhone? Yeah, here, I'll take a photo of you." Took a nice photo of them, and then I use my
Screen share.
airdrop to
Airdrop.
yeah, I
Oh,
use
such a
AirDrop to
nice
give them the
function.
photo, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we could use technology now, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
take
That's
like
great.
what we're doing right now, right?"
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
just to add to that right there, okay? I want to apologize right now to everyone that asked me for a pair of Allen keys or a screwdriver or anything like that. We do want to lend those out. I just can't.
We want to help. Yeah, we
Yeah, I
want
want to
to.
help, but I
Yeah,
just can't. And
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
And speaking of lending out stuff, as of right now, rentals that's a no go for Panther right now.
Yeah.
The restrictions in place. We can't allow to swap gear. Share our gear
Um.
or anything
Well,
like that.
actually, from what I understand, we're just taking the extra safety precautions into preventing that sort of transmission base. I understand some guys on the East Coast. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know a few of the indoor places have opened up their rentals.
Okay.
Um, Props to them, to be able to try and keep that up and try and do that. That must be, something that's really tough just because that's a lot of disinfectant.
Yeah.
Lysol must be really loving this.
Yeah,
But yeah, from what I understand, there's like no actual restriction on the rental gears per se, but we're just eliminating that whole transmission factor just because running around, heavy breathing, spitting on the mask, like
yeah,
Hey, why is
you know,
my paintball mask wet? Like, oh, sorry. Like the guy ahead of you is just like real heavy
yeah.
breather.
I think bottom line is safety is priority for the field. So by
exactly.
doing that, eliminating the sharing of gear, even if you disinfect as much as you can, we feel that it's not
Exactly.
safe.
Exactly.
Why don't we just
Exactly.
eliminate? Like
Yeah.
everyone's got the gear. Unfortunately, the new players, who needs gear can't have gear. We're sorry, but it'll come back eventually.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. This is
For Japanese.
definitely a toll on any new players trying to get in, especially with how great the weather has been this year compared
Oh,
to last year. We are having a lot more sunny days, and I tell you, 2020 is really punching us in the face right now.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
loud while punching it.
so if anyone out there has any extra stuff, you got any old guns that you need to dust off, tune up, clean up, so that you can invite more of your friends out, they encourage that just because right now we're kind of stuck with that option. We only got, I guess we could just say we only have regulars is what we would call it. I wouldn't say someone who owns an airsoft gun could be, considered a regular, but at least the owners of their airsoft guns are totally able to come out and play no problem for the time being.
Yeah.
Well, you could be like me and Poi, just go buy your stuff, right before you have anything. Like, just, show up all of a sudden. We won't be able to tell the difference. When you all of a sudden ask us what FPS is, then we're gonna ask you questions.
Hey, we're all nice. Some of us aren't very knowledgeable on a lot of things, and that's the great thing about our community is, ask questions. We'll answer it. Like, there's no dumb questions. It's
Yeah.
just, knowledge passed on to another person.
Actually, Poi, let's get that. Let's be real with them, okay? There are dumb questions, right? We are going to roast you a little bit.
Can
Like,
I
we're not
take off my
horrible.
mask here?
Like, we will roast you a little bit, but we'll get you an answer. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I
actually,
feel.
forewarning, any dumb questions will be highlighted
We're gonna
and
get
and,
roasted,
and roasted on. Just
yeah,
saying
but we'll get you an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't be that guy, but be that guy.
There's a reason we're harsh on it because safety is our priority. That's how it is.
Exactly.
Um, all right. Is there anything else we need to add to Panther reopening? I think it was well received, especially in Facebook. I saw a lot of posts online saying congratulations, like, thanks for opening it
Mhm.
up. We were so bored at home.
Yep,
Yep.
that
Countless
Yep.
one. Yeah.
questions towards me as well before I even knew they were gonna open. Like, when are they gonna open? When are they gonna open? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I am not involved in that decision
yeah,
making.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unfortunately, we're not involved in that, and
It's like
just
I
we're
just live
really
here.
happy. Yeah, exactly. But we're really happy that it's working. That we're open, and that it stays that way. I know a lot of people are hearing about the so-called second wave. We all know it's gonna happen.
yeah,
Like let's get that out of the the out there. It's gonna happen just
Mm.
because of no matter how things go with how it went, there's going to be a second wave. So all we can do is sort of continue, following the guidelines that we have and, try not to have some sort of mass panic and freak out because, we're managing. We're doing well. BC in particular has been outstanding comparative to the other parts of the country. Where we're pretty dense, I would say, for a populace out here too. Maybe not as bad as Toronto and all those other places, but we've been doing really good. And with that, I don't want people, to kind of get the wrong idea, that when the second wave comes, that we're going to close down suddenly. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But
Mhm.
I can't speak on that exactly, but be prepared. But for now, come out Saturday, Sunday, until we announce otherwise.
yep. And let's move on to our next topic here. It's also like another COVID related item. I know a lot of us felt that, especially for all of us here, we had an event coming up and that was canceled, of
Mm.
course. And we were talking about the Omega Ops. What was the event called? I didn't note it down here, guys. Sorry. Crossfire 2. Yes. So for us, I think we were all going to that event for sure. And the news coming up after all the shutdowns were in place, everyone thought that it wasn't going to be shut down. Even the event organizers, they had no idea what was happening at that point. They're like, okay, we're just going to keep it like that. And then a couple of weeks later, we were hit with the news that they were going to cancel the event.
Yeah.
Let's start off around table. Mac, how did you feel about that when they announced it? When Scott announced it, like on that Facebook post right there in the video saying he's canceled
Okay, I am the worst person to start with. Please don't. I don't want this to come back to them. Okay? Um I was totally gonna go and do everything there. Like, we were gonna have a big presence with Trainwreck there. I went the first year. I loved it. I loved the Hilo insert, even though I died. Didn't matter. I would totally waste that money again. Um, but that being said, just things in my personal life this year stopped me from just being able to go to the event and everything like that. So I had already forewarned them and my teammates and everything like that. They knew I wasn't going to be able to go. Like, I fully supported it. Like, I knew it was going to be a great time. They had worked so hard for it.
it. Yep.
Like, I do feel bad for them and everything, but there was just like this silent little man inside me, the little kid that plays airsoft. It's all like, okay, you get to go next year. So I'm like, okay, wow. So
You don't get to miss
I,
out, basically.
yeah, so I no one gets to have any fun without me. So
Okay.
I am
I
sorry, but
regret passing it to you first.
yeah, I'm gonna shut up now and
Tac,
I'm
go.
gonna let you guys talk about how
Okay.
disappointed.
Uh, okay. Well, I guess what would be the first question? I guess relating to this then.
I was saying, how did you feel when the announcement came up?
Okay. Sad, I would say. Obviously, everyone was feeling really sad. Just it was something I was looking forward to. When it comes to our team per se, or at least the group that we like going to Milsim events with, we really like using Crossfire as a sort of a break-in warm-up period, just because it is a tier 2 style event. And with that being said, it was really sad because we sort of use Crossfire plus any sort of other little events out here to sort of warm ourselves up to go to Milsom West, just because that's where we like going to. Um, And sad is, yeah, sad, definitely sad, just because with the lack of events there are out here on the west, that's a big factor. Even just losing one event is a huge thing,
Yep.
because events on the west coast here are so spread out that someone could be, spending a quarter of the year or half the year getting ready for a certain event, and to have something like this happen, I could definitely, I don't want to say it in this way to make it sound like it's any way to make us fault, because it's not. But it can really sort of hamper the community in a way where you sort of lose people, because
Sour
um,
the vibe, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what most people's opinions are on this specific thing, but to me, the average airsofter's life is like 8 months if you can't catch them properly and hold them.
Yeah. When
So
winter comes in, it's basically
Yeah,
closet
they
and
stop. Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
exactly. And so and with that period per se. So let's say you're an event organizer and stuff like that. You really want to capitalize on that sort of time limit, because if you don't catch a person in that time limit, then they're more than likely just going to leave the gun in their closet and not come out next season. And that just means that you lose one, in their case, one customer, in our case, one target, uh, a comrade, another teammate, all those kinds of things. So that kind of news is really, really saddening, but it is what it is. And I believe the community will become stronger for it, just because that's what we do. The West Coast airsoft community has been around for quite a long time. I mean, I don't want to say, I don't want to make it sound insulting, but dogs, you could say, who kind of transferred from the paintball days. And so you don't see them recognized on social media platforms. They're kind of like the old Envision Power Board form kind of guys, so that's
Yeah.
where they like to hang out. So you might not see them as often, but they are out there. And so those guys sort of explain that things like this, it happens, but you move forward, from there.
Yep.
And with that, they did make an announcement saying that they will be planning, an event coming up soon. So
Yep.
we don't know if that's going to be a full 12 months away, or if that's going to be, as soon as the restrictions are up. But as far as we know, as of right now, with the at least the provincial uh, guidelines, is that there's no airsoft
No.
events on the
No.
west side for
2020 is
2020.
basically canceled for any
Yeah,
events as of right now.
right.
Even
Yeah,
with
like
the phase 1 restrictions in place, it is just not possible because what is it? Um Omega Ops had their sign up at 300 people or something like that,
yeah,
the for the Crossfire
Yeah,
2. So right away,
exactly.
like that is not going to be cool with the government. I mean, I get it.
you
Yeah.
can't
Like
have it. Yeah.
that's why, they canceled it right away.
It
And,
doesn't matter that we're spread out, whatever it is,
doesn't
just
matter. It's still an
that number
event which
scares them. Yeah.
conglomerates a lot of people into one area, and then it
Mhm.
doesn't matter like how social distance you're gonna get. You're still gathering this much people in one area, so
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
for the foreseeable future of 2020, it's I don't think we're gonna be getting any events. It's especially for the West Coast here where we only get like one or even two events in a year.
Yeah, if that, exactly.
Yeah,
Like I would be more likely to say that we get one once every year and a half,
or at
almost,
least
just because.
just it's
Yeah.
it's it's staying into the sort of culture for West Coast airsoft for an event gets canceled. So
Yeah,
this
Well,
year
yes,
sort of stirred into that tradition as well.
Well, actually, speaking on that, like on the topic of airsoft events, you would have a lot more experience, with the culture of West Coast airsoft, because you yourself would. Obviously, I wasn't around for that one, but that Odessa
Yep.
um, event, as we like to call it, Nodessa, but I know that hits sort of a soft spot amongst some people. I know for you yourself, you spent quite a bit of money on that. Actually, that itself is a spicy topic
Yep.
yeah.
that we can sort of get into. If you'd like, Poi, I kind of like to have you sort of talk about that, just because you have a little more experience when it comes to that topic.
Well,
Well,
I think it's a little bit
well,
off topic, but yeah,
here,
basically what.
yeah. Let me
Yeah, go ahead.
let me just interject right before you go down the Odessa track, just because I know how deep that hole goes.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't. I
so
don't
just
really want to
before we
dive
even
into it.
get
It does get a bit off topic.
we'll make a whole video on that.
Yeah,
Okay, that is a
Topic in on itself.
a
Okay.
conspiracy
topic
on
on its.
its
I
own.
think we'll save that for later. Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
But
that's a little trial preview for
yeah.
anyone who's listening to
I
this.
just wanna
Be
I
prepared.
just wanna double back here to Crossfire because I know, like, I'm sorry that I was the evil guy in the back going yes, but
Yeah.
I understand that everybody yeah, I'm sure that everybody that was going is still dead set on going,
Mhm.
and anyone that had missed the mark, that to go is going to jump on the bandwagon to go to the event. So it could be a little good and it could be a little bad. Like, I really hope the guys at Omega Ops aren't hurting too bad, especially the guys at Trigger. Um, Speaking of that, guys, seriously, like, use that COVID money. Okay, go buy some airsoft stuff from Trigger. Okay, help support our local airsoft store. Um, they definitely took a huge hit trying to get this event put together, and they had an amazing event planned. I can't go into the details that I have talked to with them behind the scenes here, but it was going to be an amazing event. It's still going to be an amazing event when finally it comes back. And I know a lot of people were getting ready to go, and use this now, guys, as a little bit of time here to get even more ready, and maybe make your squad maybe one, two, three more guys in there. Maybe make your kit just a little bit less proper. It's a kind way of saying it. um you know and yeah, and really really get ready for this, because Scott and Craig and Jeff and all those guys at Omega Ops seriously have been working so hard to to bring something memorable to the West Coast, like we're saying about lacking events over here and everything like that. And I went to the first Crossfire event. I did have some problems with some ways that they ran the event, but I also had some really really good moments at other aspects of it. And again, they listened, and they went back in and they worked on what they needed to. And I was really excited to see what they were going to come up with, and I'm still excited to see what they're going to accomplish. And again, from that, it's we'll take this COVID thing as a day by day scenario as we can, because again, no one knows what the hell's going on here. It's a Chinese virus. But that being said, it's like, we all have to just kind of take it day by day, follow the rules, respect the rules, even if you don't believe in the rules, guys. It's just you got to do what you got to do to
Mhm.
help the community, okay? Because don't be selfish. This is about everybody. This isn't about one person.
Yeah. If there was ever a time to fake it till you make it, it's right now. Like,
Hmm.
Right now,
if there's some kind of thing you don't believe, it doesn't matter. Fake it till you make it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wanna add to the portion there where you're saying take your time to add someone to your team to train. I think
Hmm.
the best way to
Yeah,
train right now is basically virtually. So go play some games with your
Exactly.
teammates and
yeah,
literally use communication as key.
yes,
Like any airsoft events that I find, communication, like especially the last one that I went to, you got your leadership and then you got your guys below. If
yeah,
there is no comms between leadership and up here,
Mhm.
right? At least you could carry it with your leadership on your team, whoever is
yeah,
leading, right?
hmm
Because at least it's going to be enjoyable for you guys. And
Mhm.
communication is like the biggest part of any event. If you can communicate with your entire team, throughout, a couple of hours, right? You're going to have a much more enjoyable time versus like, wait, where did, so and so go? Oh, he's over there. Why is he over there? I told him, like, all of a sudden, like it's chaos, right? So
yeah. When
play
and that's
games.
really what
Yeah.
separates. That's really what separates a skirmish from a Milsim style game. When we throw the word like a lot of people want to just throw that word out there and everything like that, Milsim, And it's for people to really understand what that means. What are you simulating? Because like people just say the word now. They're, oh, this is my Milsim kit. It's like, that's great. What is it for? Like, like you're doing an impression of whatever. Okay. Do
Yeah.
you know what that actually means? Like,
You don't want to dive into
Uh,
that hole right now because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, so to sort of get back on track there to speak on the whole thing about communication. It's exactly like you're saying, Poi. For everyone out there, right now is the best time to use that spare time to work on communication. One of the easiest things I can talk on the subject is that let's say you're playing, games like Insurgency, even Counter Strike and stuff like that, right? And even high level games like Arma, Squad, or whatever other games there are out
Tarkov,
there,
yeah.
and Tarkov. If you get stressed out in those games, communicating with just your friends, then that's something you need to work on. Because,
Mhm.
like Poi is saying, when it comes to these events and how Mac is explaining to it, is the fine line is communication. Like, it is 10 times better, right? And I know a lot of people can speak to this, Poi and I specifically too, is when we have that clean cut communication going down, you successfully execute something. Like, there's nothing cooler than doing something like that, especially when it comes to your friends. So, if communicating is something that you struggle with, and a really easy way to tell is if you get into a command position or into leadership position and you are getting stressed out, your voice is raising, or you're getting frustrated over people's actions and stuff like that. That's something that'll clearly identify that that's something you need to work on, because a good leader is able to uh, deal with the situation dynamically. You have to be like water. If something, if there's a obstacle in your way, you got to move around it. Working on it right now is the best thing that you can do. Playing super simple games. You can take it to any level you want. You can be like, oh, dudes around the corner, blah 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 blah, or you can get all the way up to like the crazy Arma status where you're just getting into straight radio calls and stuff like that. So you can work on all kinds of things, but communication is definitely a big key factor that you
Yeah.
can be
And
practicing.
to add to that, like, I've before I even started Airsoft too, I was part of a big armor community, and for them,
Mhm.
communication is like key, especially when you're running, squad leaders to platoons. It's just when you do it virtually, um, you practice. There's a lot of times you're gonna screw up a lot, but you're doing it virtually, and then when you get to the field, you're like, it just clicks. You're like, oh, I've done this before. Like, all right, let's do this. And then especially with the group of friends that you have, you know it's to a point where you've gotten it so like, hey, he's at that corner right there, where the fallen
Mhm.
log is. He's prone right there. And then your teammate doesn't have to do anything other than knows that he, something's in front of him and he can't see it, but you can see it, right? So that is the
Exactly.
clear line of communication we're talking about, is information fed from you to your teammate clearly. And then after that, you know it's an entire sort of situational awareness that your entire team has. And
Mhm.
that itself is already, you're already at like a high level at that point, because you basically provided information to the team, and then with that your situational awareness goes up even further. um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think I have a video segment of situational awareness from Operation Red Dawn,
Oh yeah,
where I
yeah.
was I was basically leading what the young the what it was, Walking Dead, probably the last year he was alive, and then basically led an entire group into that school. But yeah, the point I'm trying
What?
to make in that is basically,
Went where?
no, it was the old school there. We
No,
called it
I
school.
Oh,
know. Just the
Yeah. Oh my
area.
goach.
sounded like a Jedi
Yeah.
scene there for
But I'm gonna
particular
I'm I'm
Anakin.
I'm gonna I'm gonna clip
Anyways,
that.
yeah, it was an old video, and I emphasize that communication is key. Situational awareness is very key. Um, in all, basically, getting back on track here, airsoft events canceled, yes,
Yeah,
for this year.
up here and down there.
Best way to train right now is basically, if you can't come out and airsoft, or you don't want to risk it, play online with your squad mates, because like, at the end, like, you're playing with them, and if you're at the field and you're frustrated with communicating with them that they don't get it, it's because both of you have not practiced it before.
Mhm.
And to, to refine that in a video game, in a virtual world, is 10 times as good, because you're not physically exerting yourself, because when you're physically exerting yourself, and as well as like mentally frustrated because you can't get your call outs out, or no one's communicating with you, then you vent a little bit more. In video games you'll
Snow.
vent a lot more, but like at least it's virtually, and you could replay it, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have to pull an angry German kid.
Smash the yeah, smash the kid.
For anyone who remembers that.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, so speaking of airsoft events in 2020, up here, I'm really sorry about Crossfire, and it looks like everything down south too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, I know. Hey, look, Tack, I know. I'm just as optimistic as you that things turn around here by the summer or whatever. I understand that they're playing under a different set of rules than us, right?
Well, it's not even that. I was just gonna say that obviously, Omega announced their future events. That's with no physical date, but they said it's gonna happen.
Yep.
Um, but there are other event organizers out there. I myself don't know the name. Poi, you might know, but I know that there's an airsoft event that happens up in Quesnel, so I think Prince George area. I don't know
Yeah.
who runs that, but I know there are other event organizers in BC
Yeah.
other than Omega Ops.
It's very
Um,
remote, unfortunately for us. So
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for
down
me
here in the
personally, I
lower
wouldn't risk
mainland,
going up
aren't.
there to spread something, that starts here. So I will not take part of it. But
mhm.
like for them, running events is basically running a regular game for Panther. That's how small they get for these groups. Like they'll get a group of
Yeah, they're
25 and
super
it's
tiny.
basically an event. Like that's the difference between like the interior of BC,
Mhm.
right? Or northern BC even, where the
Yeah.
population can only get like, 1,000 people, 2,000 people in like a town or something, right? It's not a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? So for
Well, and I
them,
feel
they
like
run an
those
event and it's like that's how big it is. Like
Well,
size does matter,
okay.
yes.
So then that comes down to the big question at hand, really, right? Where it's all like, what size, how many people constitutes an event, right?
Yeah.
Because on a good day in the summer, we've had
300.
200 plus,
Yeah.
300 plus people at Panther before. Like that, we've had all three parking lots filled,
Yeah.
right? And
well,
that
to speak to that, I feel like obviously for us, we're a little bit spoiled when it comes to that um
space.
to that subject in particular, just because how big Panther is. Panther is the biggest field in BC
Yep.
that accommodates, for airsoft, and with that, comes the space. A lot of people, I can't particularly say, but I know I've read on the forums and stuff like that. People only can shoot sometimes up to 100 or 50 feet. That's all they have. For us, we have as far
50 years. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
so we can range our guns. We can min max a lot of things that a lot of other guys can't. So that's a lot where a lot of other things also um kind of get mashed up too.
divulge.
Well,
Yeah.
that get mashed up with information because you have guys who talk about a lot of things over about min maxing on our side, and then you got guys over on their side who don't. But with that in particular, it's just that Uh, it's on the tip of my tongue here, but I can't get it. Oh,
That's okay.
okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I lost it, guys. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well,
Was
subject is events, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a recent event in the States that happened last weekend, actually. Um,
Yeah.
so that went on back in the East Coast in South Carolina. It's run by the what is it? It was Operation Stonebreaker, Milsim
Hmm.
in the East Coast. So basically, a facility called TGI, or Government Training Institute or something like that. They ran a Milsim of 300 events with helicopters and everything. So
Oh,
yeah, I guess after there, now do you realize this is the U.S. When their
Yeah, yeah.
restrictions lifted, they were allowed to go through their games as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they I saw a bunch of cool clips there. I think Spartan GW's like he had like a bunch of cool clips there. Go check it out. But yeah, as far as events go, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of pushing at that point when it comes to the risk factor. But again, like let me state, this is the U.S., not Canada. So we have
Mhm.
our restrictions here, and they have
Mhm.
their restrictions there. So
Well, we're playing by different rules here,
yeah,
and it sucks because like I would love to go to their events. Like,
yeah,
I won't lie, the most fun I've had a Milsim scenario was me going to Milsim West both years. I had an amazing time at the Centerville Milsim,
yep,
and I would love to go to more. I was really aiming and hoping to be able to go down to one that they have in South Carolina or South California,
yep,
Southern California.
yep,
But you know, everything's up in the air right now. So
yep. All right. Shall we move on? I think that's enough events cancellation
yeah,
and
Yeah,
I think
well,
everyone's I think everyone's pretty sad.
yeah.
exactly. Like all we can say is that the
Can we
United
get
States.
an F in the chat, please?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. F in chat,
If you're
you
still
know.
watching, F in chat so we know, your
Yeah,
reception.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
let's move on. Whose topic was this? Changes in people's gear attitude. Was that UMAC or TAC or
No, that was Tack. That
that
was
was TAC?
definitely that. But it's a really good perception that he's noticed, and
Is it
him and
is
I
it
have been
from
discussing.
from just this year? Or are we talking about like after COVID or like the restrictions
um,
or what are we talking about here?
well,
I'd
let's
say in
just
the last year, Tack, right
Well, I'll give
before
it like
COVID and everything.
I'll give it a 2-year timeline, just because
Okay.
that's where I've been sort of focusing on, sort of when I've kind of been keeping track in a sense, and within the last year, specifically with the transition, is that I've noticed a lot of people switching from full plate carrier builds, with their gear and stuff like that, to a more lightweight skirmish style build. Now, mind you, that can be attributed to a lot of different things, like for instance in the as we call it, real steel for guns. In the real steel world, there's a huge attitude change when it comes to gear. A lot of people are starting to just do range kits, which is just a couple mags so that you can practice your fundamental drills, and just a little pouch just so that they can hold a couple things. And so it's very, very lightweight. It's not all stuff that you see, that from guys from Afghanistan or from like those super chatted out, Russian videos and stuff like that. You don't have guys hulking around, showing up, wearing the full armor anymore. You still do every once in a while, but the major attitude I've seen is now everyone's starting to go from plate carriers down to chest rigs, and obviously that trend kind of goes up and down, but that's what I'm noticing right now, and that's what's is getting really popular. I've seen specific rigs, I guess, like the Spiritus. I see that
Yeah,
one being rocked out a lot. I see a lot of Cry stuff.
Haley
With
strategic.
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of Haley strategic, and part of that comes with a lot of the marketing that I'm
Yeah.
seeing that
Now,
they're
is
doing
it
and stuff
is
like
it
that.
because of like readily available gear that they could purchase, or you think something else is influencing? Like, you're talking about like range gear, like a lot of people are like like T-Rex arm or something like that because
Hundred
like
percent.
they're promoting it,
100%.
right? Like,
Me-
you
well,
think it has something to do with that, or like
I definitely, there is a play with it. Lucas is very good at what he does. And he has there's other influences like from our world. In particular, we have Liku from Japan, who did well, he surprised the world. Let's be honest here. On what he is capable of doing, which was really, really cool.
yeah,
Once he got the recoil down, boom, there you go. So that's something that's a real big bonus for us. But yeah, no, with it, like I'm gonna say affordability is probably a big factor on that, because let's be honest, people who want to, when they play airsoft, when it comes to like the epitome of it, you're playing dress up. So when guys pick who they want to play dress up as, let's say A guy wants to be a fully kitted out, U.S. soldier, to get it, cry AVS, is I don't know how much it is because I don't ever want to look into that. But, like that's super expensive and
Mm-hmm.
that's a certain kit and a certain look you're trying to go for. Well, it's like you want to be, Range Daddy Grand Thumb or Range Daddy Lucas, from T-Rex Arms there, you want to emulate that guy. Well, his kit's, like
Very light.
90
Yeah.
90% cheaper than Mr. Cry full AVS kit. You know what I mean? So affordability is a real big factor, and I know with gear attitudes with people, it's cry once or buy once cry once or whatever whatever they say. It's like, yeah, good quality gear is important, but at the end of the day, this is airsoft, people. You're not getting shot at by bullets. You're not carrying real plates unless you're going to mill some events and you're a real big tryhard. So affordability, I think, is what's influencing, the gear attitude, and it's being influenced on both sides in the actual firearms industry as well as, our LARPing world.
What about for people like like kids who are into video games? Like Rainbow
Mhm.
Six is probably a big one. A lot of them will sort of impersonate the characters that they have there and copy their gear. Do you think that has a major influence on them? Because I've seen, like for me personally, I've seen, because
Mhm.
I'm a Tarkov player, like Escape from
Mhm.
Tarkov is a big one. I'll notice players will come in and basically, get like their killer gear or
Mhm.
their scav gear or whatever, like whatever they want to like see in there. But it seems like because Gray Shop has gotten to a point where it's so readily available here, especially in
Mhm.
Canada. And I don't
Mhm.
know in the States, but in Canada here, like people have just been buying it just so they could get that look. So you think
Mhm.
video games is also a big influence on it as well?
Um, I can speak on that, directly, and yeah, I think video games is a huge influence, especially in the culture of things, just because a lot of things tie together. I when you look at airsoft, airsoft is like the biggest epitome of nerding out, except
Mm-hmm.
you're out there physically doing it. So, all those people that want to do all the microtransaction stuff online and stuff like that will kit yourself up. Like with that in particular, when you talk about video games, I definitely see, like, with 2 years in the last 2 years actually, with Rainbow Six and stuff like that in particular, was everyone was full kitted, in that game. They were wearing plate carriers. They're not really lightweight. You got guys like Thatcher, you got guys like Mute, stuff like that. So I feel like that was a huge heavy influence on that. And another game I feel like that sort of started influencing lighter kits was The Division. I
Yeah,
particularly
I was just
didn't
Yeah,
about to
play.
say.
that's a big one too. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
I particularly didn't play, but I know last year for Halloween there was at least 3 or 4 people that did some excellent Division kits. Like
Just to add to that, the sling bags became popular.
mm,
Yeah,
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 you
yeah,
noticed that, right?
yeah,
The sling
yeah.
bags with the
yeah,
carabiners, and me being a
yeah,
Yeah.
climber, me being having climbing gear. I've had multiple people ask me if they could borrow my legit climbing gear with all the carabiners, and I'm like, are you
yeah,
guys climbing?
Just for the look.
Are you guys
yeah,
rappelling? Are you guys climbing? Belay? What's going on? And then
yeah.
for me, I wasn't playing Division back then, and then I realized that most of them had climbing gear on for no apparent
Mhm.
reason.
Yeah,
But
exactly,
like I
right?
noticed
Yeah.
right away, like, okay, that's a big influencer right there. Like,
Mhm, mhm. I definitely 100% exactly. And then when it comes to kits like Gray Shop, when you're saying like that, Tarkov, well, I've noticed Gray Shop is following the trend and they're stocking stuff that are from video games, which is
yeah,
also assisting in the whole atmosphere of everything. Like, for instance, I know there's one kid at the field that has a full Killa armor set from Tarkov, so he's
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
memeing Killa from
Mhm.
Tarkov,
yeah,
and he's even built himself a Groza, so he's memeing it
yeah.
100%. So that's another thing with airsoft and airsoft gear is, are you becoming a meme? Are you trying to meme this stuff? So that's another
Yeah.
big thing too. That's what I think is also influencing people's gear choice, I guess, is that people are trying to achieve meme status. You know, and
I mean,
boy,
airsoft's a big right?
Yeah.
Airsoft's a big pie. It's split up into different things. You got your Milsim slice of pie, you got your Speed Soft slice of pie, you got your Meme Soft slice of pie, which I really love watching because Meme Soft just makes me laugh so much. Like, you know, like seriously, half of the players that we got coming out to the field sometimes, and the costumes that I see, and just the effort that people go into play, it literally just cracks me up dying laughing sometimes. Like, remember buddy that came in with the like, what was it the other day? He just had the yellow, right? It's simple as hell, but it's a yellow AK mag with a banana. Like, come on,
Dude,
man. That's
Oh
that
just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
so funny.
in the
Come on.
real steel world, that's also a meme as well. I mean,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Oh,
that
I
point,
get it,
like
man. I
it
get it.
slowly,
I get it.
converges, and it's
yeah,
just
Yeah, we
hilarious.
do
I
take a
like
lot
when you
off.
see that, you're like, I see what you did
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
like
hey, and I'm speaking for me. I played in a banana suit like a year ago. Okay, I went the whole day
yeah.
playing in a banana suit, and I
Well,
didn't die.
well,
Right?
airsoft's perfect for memes. You know, you got that Jolly Bee gun too. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Actually, that was real
oh,
steel, by the way.
see those. So there you go. You know, there's nothing funnier than when you open your ejection port and it's just like hello.
Jolly Bee.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, to segue into that, like gear is cool, but like, is it also weather dependent? Like, does it
Mm,
change when
mm.
because we have distinct seasons in our end here? Does it change in let's say in winter time or something like that?
I'm gonna say no because with the amount of money that people spend on this stuff, it's very reflective on that because you'll see them like for
Well,
instance, a great example I can use is when I went to Milsom West, especially the Centerville Milsom West. They will literally tell you place is hot. You
Yep.
should wear chest rigs. Don't show up with plate carriers. They even say this in the op boards. They tell everyone this. What do people do? They show up in plate carriers, and then what happens? People heat cas.
Yep.
You know, it is
every
what it
every
is.
year,
You know, so yes,
every year.
it is
Yeah.
weather dependent. Some people will change their gear, but when you got dumbass guys, I'm gonna say it. Gonna say it right now. Dumbass guys who spend a lot of money on their Cry full gear plate carriers or just other brand full plate carriers. You know, like Fair Concept plate carriers. That are just full coverage. You're gonna die.
Oh, I
So
thought you were talking about you and I, our first year when we went with our Condor full plate carriers.
Oh my god,
well,
that's hot.
Yeah.
It's gonna get
so
I
hot.
thought he was talking about us, but he was trying to
well,
point the finger. Like,
so I'm gonna segue into that where it's like I fit into that group where it's just like I
yeah,
don't
we
care.
did it.
I'm gonna
We
wear
did
what I'm
it.
gonna wear because I'm
Yeah.
trying to achieve a certain look. You know, it is what it is.
Well,
That what comes
yeah,
with the
it comes down
territory.
to that.
You know, but
Like, it
exactly.
comes. Right, because like you're saying, yeah, like I mean, you got people who do care about their kit that want to have the proper stuff, that they are going for a certain look, that they're gonna want a certain brand. Kudos and hats off to those people. If you've got the money, you got the wallet space, if you've got the knowledge to get and put together that kind of stuff, big clap to you. And I'm not the type of person that's gonna look down on someone for having like a Raven X chest rig or some kind of Condor plate carrier or something like that. We all start off somewhere and stuff, me being the Condor plate carrier. And, we all work our way into things that we're trying to put together. And, that's what it is. So, like, when Poi, you're asking about people's like gear changing weather dependent, I can't speak for like the East Coast guys. They got indoor out there. You guys
Mm,
are lucky
Yeah.
but
butts. I
actually, that's
really
a
wish
big
we
thing.
could have
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
out here, I know in the winter, I change my gear.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear my rig or I'm gonna wear my plate carrier, whichever one. It depends on my mood actually with those things
Yeah.
or what gun I'm running. But I'm wearing a jacket. I'm wearing full BDUs. I'm not wearing or I'm wearing a hybrid tack shirt or I'm wearing just an OD shirt or something like that. It's definitely weather dependent. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of gear out there. There's a lot of stuff to choose. I mean, it is up to each individual to kind of navigate that kind of ocean of
Yeah.
stuff. There's gonna be a lot of people out there that are telling you you got to have this or you got to have that. But
Hmm.
honestly, it all comes down to what you as a person want to do. And I know tons of guys in our community that come out and they have all their money in their gun, and they play with like a gun belt or a high cap mag, one high cap mag. You know,
That was me on the
you got
weekend, just one high cap.
why just, yeah, exactly,
Well,
Yeah.
right?
well,
Like,
you know,
it doesn't
when you
make
achieve, well, when you achieve that, you know, you've achieved full airsoft Chad status,
See, for me
right?
personally, like for me, gear is basically like I go for comfort at this point.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm.
So throughout the years of playing, like in the last 10 years, like I tried to do like impressions and stuff. I didn't really like it, and then I went for like I slowly started like I slowly just like what was available at that time. So I just slowly accumulate gear, and then yeah, it does become for me. It does become weather dependent. Like if it's hot, I'm gonna put on like a shirt rather than long sleeve. Versus like if it's cold, then I'm gonna put on a jacket, right? Like
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
I'm going
yeah,
for total comfort at this point, right? But
Yeah.
like the cool status like gets pretty cool because like I shared that photo there. I don't
Hmm.
know if you saw
I
that.
saw that. I saw
Yeah,
that. That
I'll,
was
I'll
a
I'll
good
show
one.
it in the video here. But like stuff like that does like photos like these like in the wintertime especially, and you're wearing like really rare to see like winter camos for
Hmm.
like airsoft players. Like you see stuff like that and you're like, oh, that's cool, right? Like yeah, there's some coolness factor
There's a
into like
major cool factor. Let's be real, because you
yeah
know,
yeah.
like it doesn't snow often.
yeah
You know, it does snow, but it doesn't snow often. So,
yeah
you know,
You got to
we're
time it.
like we're like little children. You know,
yeah
when the snow comes down, we're pulling all our gear out. You know what I mean?
yeah. So yeah, for me it does become weather dependent. I choose to like I'm not gonna go out in like full on like plate carrier and like
Mm.
long sleeves and like or even like a full Gorka or something, right? That like a Gorka suit, right?
I was
And
gonna
like
say you start out full Gorka, and then eventually you'll strip down to
you'll
just the
strip
chest rig,
down
right?
because like it's too hot.
Just a carrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like
Well,
yeah,
and that's the realities of West Coast airsoft, at least in my opinion. Obviously, like we were saying, West Coast, we unfortunately for us, we don't have any indoor
it's
out here at
outdoor.
all.
Yeah.
So it's all outdoor for us. Guys back east, you know, I've heard some really nice things. You know, some of you guys have some,
Yeah.
you know,
Jealous, man.
air conditioned fields. You know, that'd be really nice. I'd like to wear a full plate carrier in an air conditioned field, but I don't got that
I just
option.
want some
So
real CQB, man.
yeah, yeah. So with that gear, you know, with the weather and stuff like that, definitely. For us on the West Coast, it's gear is heavily dependent on the weather, just because of our situation.
Mm, yeah. No, I agree. Um. All right. Well, we could segue into the next question or topic. Anyways, is
Mm,
I know this is a much debated discussion at the field, and we were
yeah,
just
it's a
talking
hot
about
topic.
CQB, full auto. So, a much debated topic that we were talking about. I know everyone cringes is full auto basically. We're gonna get, we're gonna. I know there's like probably for some of us here is gonna be like a lot of like different opinions on it, but like we were talking about like CQB and how CQB is like, especially for Panther, it is semi only, especially in city. Um, in places like Siege, it's the same rule as well because I've been there as well, semi auto as well. Being that we're lucky that we're to be outside, we do allow full auto at Panther, but not in city. What are you guys' opinion on that? And first and foremost, let's talk about safety. Panther's stance on it right now is semi-auto in city. Um, the safety always comes first in terms of the general public when it comes to airsoft. So for like general airsoft games, yeah, you know semi only, no
Mhm.
full auto in city. But private games, then that's up to them what they want to do. But as far as like general games go, no full auto in city. Tack,
Okay. Well, it's definitely a hot topic.
yeah, it's
There's a lot of things that we could go over when it comes to full auto, but specifically, we'll focus on
Well,
just
clarify the rule. Clarify the rule.
well,
What's our rule on?
well, with full auto at Panther is you're not allowed full auto within your minimum engagement distance. Minimum engagement distance, you know, changes between your regular rifle, which is 366 all the way up to 419 FPS. So that's a 20-foot
minimum engagement distance when it comes to full auto. Um, with the DMR setup, that's 419 all the way up to, I believe it's 480 or four, is it 450? And then yeah, oh yes, 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 420 all the way up to it's like 449 or 450 for semi-automatic DMRs. But obviously, there's no full auto with those guys. But and also because of the whole full auto, there's no specific rules around machine guns. That's sort of like a gray area per se, because I know when it comes to those specific weapons, you don't really have that option of semi-automatic fire.
Okay,
It's more
okay.
like
Here,
burst.
I gotta
So
jump in here. I gotta jump in because you gotta get the rule out. Okay, at Panther Airsoft, we do not allow full auto in, at, or around buildings. So this includes city and includes all the other past film sets that are available for play when the field is using them. Right. So
and act
mines,
and
summer
active.
home, cabins, just any. You cannot full auto at, in, or around a building. You
Yep.
can't use the building as cover and use full auto. You can't be in the building and use full auto. And you can guarantee that someone is not shooting you with full auto while you are at the building, around the building, or right. Like that is Panther's
Panthers.
stance on it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's always a lot of confusion when it comes to that rule, especially at Panther,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people
Yep.
be like, yeah, but this isn't city. No, 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 no. It's buildings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
And that's what I want everyone to
Yeah. And that's
understand
why
is
it's
that
always a
if you
hotly
are standing
contested
at
debate.
Boathouse, yeah, yeah.
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 If you're standing at Boathouse and you're using full auto, I'm gonna call you out on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because
So
then I can
exactly.
use
That
full auto, and I have
yeah.
a Polar Star, and my
Yeah.
gun's gonna hurt more.
Yeah. So with that, that's Panther's stance on the full auto stuff. So like, what are part of the reasons why it's dictated that way? Let's get into that kind of topic as to
Mhm.
why it's like that, because that's really what comes down to the whole hot topic about full auto. Because there's reasons why, and that's why there are
Mhm.
certain rules and regulations put into place, and then you also have to put in the human factor. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
there's always that factor. But I know a major player comes to is insurance. I know when it comes to insurance stuff, if something goes wrong, um, coverage is a really big important thing. Full auto increases the chances of something bad going wrong, and so therefore it's heavily regulated, unfortunately. And I know everyone feels the same way. Manufacturers put a fun switch on there. It's not like a real firearm. We're not all limited to semi-automatic fire only. So when you have that manufacturer available full auto, you want to use it. And in my opinion, when it comes to this sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it, that's a tactical advantage, and that's a thing that you should be able to use. Mind you, another factor that plays into this comes down to Canadian law. And unfortunately, with Canadian law, we have this weird rule where it has to be
We have
between
a minimum range.
366 and 500, as well as it's got to shoot below 5.5 joules. So with that said, I don't know about you guys, but I've been hit by a 366 FPS gun. I'm not saying that I'm a baby, but you feel it, And when you have
Especially
guns,
close range, man.
well, exactly. And so when you have guns that can shoot some of these speeds of like 30 RPS plus, and they're designed that way because of some of the limitations based off of the rules, it hurts, and so with that comes into not being able to do full auto, and so that's another thing that sort of factors into it, because if you had a gun that could shoot 250 FPS, I'm sure no one would complain getting full autoed by that, because that would just be like a dust of BBs, and you would be able to play it off a little bit more compared to some of these really tuned guns shooting at like four. Let's say you had a gun just shooting at 419 FPS, right, just on the very edge. It's gonna hurt. Like yeah, you're on the edge there. So that that's really what dictates sort of the rules around that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Poi, what do you think about what else sort of dictates the full
Well,
auto?
I mean, personally, I always use semi, so I'm not really the type to use sort of full auto weapons to begin with. I mean,
Mhm.
I understand that for some people, like you paid for the auto switch, you're gonna use the full auto switch, and I get
Mhm.
that. But in terms of Panthers rule, yeah, you could use full auto on anywhere else other than
Mhm.
buildings itself. So I see where the frustration comes from players that'll be like, okay, why is he shooting full auto? And
Mhm.
then I'm gonna shoot full auto at him, and then it becomes a heated argument at that point, right? Because you're getting hit, it hurts, and then he's not calling his hits or whatever. Maybe you don't know, whatever, right? Either way, it becomes a hotly contested debate of like, why
Mhm.
do we have restrictions on this? And
Mm.
to that, we'll leave it up to Panther because that's the rule right there. That's hands
Ex-
down. But
Yeah.
for me personally, I've always been a semi-auto guy anyway, so that doesn't matter. I'm usually in a medium range striker. When I do CQB, it's usually semi-auto anyway. So
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, if you have a sidearm, practice with your sidearm too, dude. Like CQB
Exactly.
sidearm, like
It's
that's already
perfect.
semi right there, unless you got a
Yeah.
Glock,
Oh man.
18. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's not really much of a big issue for me. Like, yeah, you can
Mhm.
shoot me a full auto in buildings. I'll still call it no matter what.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
that's the way the sport is. But there are some people that
Oh,
goes, "Hey, why you
regard-
auto outside of a building? I'm not calling it." Like, dude,
Mhm.
like, come on. Like, you could respawn
oh
later.
yeah. So don't get me wrong. I'm still gonna call it, right?
Yeah,
Like if somebody were to shoot me, like I will never, accept the hit, but I might go out and cuss you out a little bit. Just like,
I
hey,
think everybody does
you know,
that. Be like,
Yeah.
did you need to
yeah,
dump 30 rounds into me with my hand up or something, right? Like, but
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
other
Mhm.
than that,
That's
and
that's
I
that's the
understand.
safety they're talking about, right? Like if you're doing full auto, the first shot will hit and then the rest of it will follow through, right? And if he is
Exactly.
not ready, right, he'll stand up and get a face load of it, right? He's in
Mhm.
cover, right? You get him with the first one and then the follow through comes in, right? And then that's I guess that's where some of the ruling comes in about safety, right? Like you're
Mhm.
you're in a
Mhm.
corner, you shoot him, and then he peeks out, he peeks in again, and then you shoot him, you get him, and then he calls it, but you then proceed to
Another
volley
volley.
Yeah,
more
well,
shots into him, and then it
I
becomes
always put my
heated.
hand out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I could see where you're coming from there, Mac. I mean, I've
Yeah.
had that too, where I'll be like, I called it already, and then all
Mhm.
of a sudden you get some more, right? But realizing
Yeah.
like, and,
Yeah.
and then afterwards I realized that like, yeah, they they full autoed
Well, they
me.
bursted you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
Mhm.
bursted me, right? And then that gets to a point where you're in city and you're like, well, why was he full on? Then it
Mhm.
becomes a big
Oh,
debate after that. So I could see why it
yeah.
becomes hotly contested afterwards because you got tempers flaring and then
Mhm.
people just like, oh, you're not following the rules, but like
Well, so we have it the way we have it for everyone's safety
yeah,
and for everyone's enjoyment
Exactly.
because full and just getting to the human nature and then just adding in the fact that we're airsofters. I can't trust you guys with full auto ever. Like, no, no, I could barely like I don't run the Milsim, so you go ahead and do whatever you want at a Milsim event. All I'm saying is full auto is not tactically always advantageous when it comes to ammo. Okay, that's it.
yeah.
Well, so to add to that, I forgot, because us again coming to the spoiled factor of Panther, I keep forgetting some of the other things is that a lot of the indoor fields are limited to certain BB weights, right? So there,
Yep.
that's actually another factor because one of the big things at Panther is because we're an open field, there's a huge push for heavier weights,
Because
and
of
actually
distance.
because of the distance.
Yeah.
And so and I'll speak to this where it's like I wouldn't mind, if you got a super tuned gun and I get hit by point twos, yeah, it's going to sting a little bit, but that's more so from the speed, not from the actual impact. But let's say you got a guy who's volleying, 15 round shot of
Four
three
fives. Yeah.
sixes or something like that, right?
Oh yeah.
That's going to hurt, like no matter what,
Mm.
it's still going to hurt because of just the weight factor behind it. So when it comes to our field, that's another reason why we can't allow that because there's such a huge fluctuation in BB weights. Like at places like like Siege, obviously they probably have restrictions on BB weights.
They
You
do.
go in
Yep.
through a door, you can easily regulate that. Um, so then no matter what gun someone's shooting, you're not gonna it's just gonna be shooting faster.
You know what I mean? Based on the tuned gun. It's
Yeah.
not going to be like, oh, this guy's, right? So, there's that major factor for us too when it comes to the full auto factor, and you can hear it. I don't know about you guys, but I know when someone's shooting a heavier weight. If someone's shooting like a point threes and they're bunkering you down, you hear that, and you're a little afraid to peek out of that because a lot of that. But for me, also when it comes to full auto, I'm not about the whole spraying a guy in a corner or whatever it is. I like the factor of it being a tactical tool. So, like, I would like the
Bunkering a
ability
guy.
to bunker a guy. Like, if there's a door, I know a guy's there. I'd like to be able to full auto a little bit, couple bursts to keep his head behind there. Now, obviously, you can do the same thing with semi. I know that, but there's just that intimidation factor when it comes to certain guns. Now, for myself, I like keeping my guns between 15 to 20 RPS just because I'm an idiot that way.
Realism.
Well, yeah, I'm just like that, and that actually sort of brings into one of the other topics on this particular subject is because of these certain restrictions, it leads to different builds and different innovations, right? So a lot of places, people still want that full auto factor, and I'm sure everyone's seen that video. I don't know if Boy can pull that up later or whatever it is, but I believe it's the OC Airsoft or whatever it is, the full auto video where the guy's going through and he's got the DSG build, and then the guy's like, no full auto in the buildings or whatever, and the guy's like, that's not full auto, this is full auto. So,
Oh,
Isn't that Tax City?
or
I think
yeah, or
that's
whatever.
Tax City.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah, I
that
think that's Tax City, but
so that
that's a DSG build, and that's
well,
that's
well
sweet.
so exactly. So when it comes down to that factor, is that people are to achieve that full auto-ness,
All
but they're
right, let me
trying to
show that
find.
video. Hold on, give
Mhm.
me a second.
Yeah.
Here, let me link it to you guys as well, so you guys can see. I understand what you're talking about there. I'm just gonna play it here for everybody in the audience.
I'm not full auto. It's not full auto. That's not full auto. This is. That's full auto.
Damn, bro. Okay.
Damn. She's like, damn, right?
Like
That's
the thing is, like, yeah, I get what you're saying with people get into creative builds, then it's
get around it,
to get
right?
around it, then your semi becomes a full auto machine anyway, and you're as fast as what your trigger pulls, right? So
Exactly.
like that's the topic that we get into, is like, what is a safe rate of fire at that point? Like, yes, it's not full auto, and it fires fast. Like, what is the acceptable rate that we're looking at here, right? Like,
Well, so when it comes to that with Panther particularly, we have unfortunately there's no restriction. Well, fortunately, there's no restriction on AAGs at the moment, just because that could get into a pretty heated topic with individual owners. But
well, no one's broke our trust yet.
with the ease of use of a HPA system, we have put the limits on HPA systems. So HPA systems can't shoot above 20 RPS at Panther because of the jewel creep factor and just a bunch of other things. Everyone's heard the A10 warthogs out there when it comes
Yep.
to Polar Star, right? So that is not fun in a sense. It's cool. I love that. It's like, if you want to simulate an A10 coming through and stuff like that, pick a Polar Star. That's the perfect thing, or a Wolverine, whatever. But it's you can't trust people, and it comes down to what's an acceptable semi rate of fire. Honestly, to me, you can't. I don't know. Maybe
It's hard, man.
well, it's hard.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I feel like that's something we should ask everybody, right? Is like everyone should kind of get back to us, and we should ask a community-wide question on what
Well,
everyone else thinks.
exactly. I guess my personal take on it is that I like firearms. I like the speed of firearms. Firearms are limited to what they're limited to. I like emulating that kind of stuff. So I try to limit myself within that realm to keep myself in sort of that space. So, that's my personal opinion on it. I know there's going to be some people out there who think they should be able to push it's to crazy extremes, and they're I don't knock it. It is what it is. There's guys like Umbrella who make a business around building DSG builds, so
Yeah.
there is a market out there, right? There because there's a business for it.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I would say someone on this particular topic, Elliot would have the best experience for it, just because he also comes from, the UK airsoft side of things, and they also have a lot of different rules when it comes to it. And I believe they also have full auto available at some of their fields over there, and obviously they probably do it a lot more responsibly. They also have different FPS rules, mind you, when it comes
Like
to
250, dog.
well, exactly. So that comes down to the pain factor.
Yeah. So my
So
take on it
safety.
is basically like, if you have full auto, use it responsible. And it
Yeah.
takes one bad actor and to basically ruin it for everybody else. And from my experience years ago of, like using or not using being used at, at full auto with like heavy BBs, and them using abusing the rules,
Hmm.
it didn't become fun anymore. It became frustrating, but for them it was fun, and I understand that like they paid for it and that's what they're getting
Yeah.
out of it, right? And actually, to go a little bit off topic, that's how the meme team was sort of born, because like we had my group of friends didn't like playing with certain groups of friends, so we decided, can we make our own? Can we splinter off and make our own little games here? And that's where our meme team mini games were born. But anyways, that like
Mm.
that
Yeah.
it becomes to a point where it doesn't become fun anymore, right? So like
Exactly.
that's why, as I was saying, like in Panther, your safety is their priority, and if you're not having fun, then something's wrong, right?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Having fun is the name of the game, and
yeah,
whatever focuses on that specific aspect is what we are going to push, because we might not be able to please everyone, but we can try and make sure that everyone has, at least a standard that everyone can play at. It's like the analogy I like, saying is like, these are the lines for, the basketball court. Everything inside the lines, you're gonna have a good time. As soon as you step out of those
Just
lines, you're gonna have a
basketball.
bad time.
yeah,
Mhm.
So
yeah.
so
Um,
that's the way I look at that.
yeah. I got nothing else to add to this. It's like I said, it's a really debated
It,
topic at the field. I get why there's so
yeah.
much frustration to it,
Well,
and
exactly.
It's
And
something we'll definitely have to touch back on.
yeah,
as a person who has all kinds of guns, and just like you, Poi, you have all kinds of guns. And obviously, their first time airsoft players just gonna have like their fun switch on their gun and stuff like that. But guys like you and me might, have other things. Like I have an LMG. So one of the things I'm limited to, specifically on my M249, is that there is no semi. I can only do burst fire. So that comes down to me being a responsible person, and
Mhm.
trying not to hurt people. Unfortunately, yes, and this is the reality of it, everyone. Okay, just because you buy a gun doesn't mean that you have a right to play with it. Specifically when it comes to Panther, just because you bought the, let's say, the tripod, machine gun or something like that, we don't have to facilitate you for that. We have to facilitate everyone. So just because you have, the coolest bee's knees machine gun doesn't mean that you get to run through city and full auto everyone. It doesn't work that way.
or
You're
you
gonna
have
have
a
to
super upgraded LMG, like
exactly. It's like you gotta pick your time and place. Like if you upgraded that thing to go play at a Milsim, go play at a Milsim. Don't bring that to a skirmish game on the weekend where there's renters and little kids playing who you're gonna have where you're gonna ruin their time. That's not what don't do that. That's not what we're all here for. We're trying to grow the community, and unfortunately, with the topic of full auto, that's where it comes to be a hot topic, because everyone has differing opinions on it. Everyone, you know, it is. It's a hot topic.
speaking of LMG, is yours gonna be fixed soon?
Oh, I knew that was coming up. So, yeah, that's definitely a work in progress. Little advice to anyone if you're looking into getting a gun, specifically, I suggest don't get things secondhand. No, not knocking on the person that I got the gun from. It's a lot easier to do things from the start. I'm running an Daytona M249 kit, so that's a hugely time-consuming mechanical system. I love it for what it is. I've I've got through all the kinks. Finally getting to the point now where I'm adjusting the hop and I'm actually being able to shoot BBs now. Before it was just falling apart. So
Yeah. So you can see where you're coming from, where you built this thing
yeah,
from the ground up. You basically
yeah,
paid everything to be a beast. And then you come into a
yeah.
game and then they're like, you like go easy on them. Come on. Like
It, it,
can you use it
exact,
responsibly? Like is it
exactly.
possible, right?
Yeah, and
Exactly.
from my experience here, and I'm not afraid to tell you guys this, right? I'll be honest with you. The kit in total has cost me well over one. I think it's like over 1.5K now is what I've spent on that one airsoft gun. That's including the machine gun itself with the Daytona system inside it, the 124 cubic inch tank that I have, the regulator that I needed to run with it, and then all the box mags that have to accompany with it, not including the large amount of money that you're going to spend on BBs to get the thing
And
working.
this thing
So
is only designed so that you can fire at the
full
best
auto.
full auto rate you can.
Exactly.
And
So
someone coming in and be like, "Wow, that thing's a beast." Yeah, but watch this, and you mow down like like you just spit out so much BBs and like mow down a bunch of kids,
yeah,
and they're not having a fun time. How do you feel about that at that point?
exactly. Like
Mm.
it, if I brought it out on a skirmish for the weekend, it would literally just be to show it off, kind of thing, for people. See what's capable in airsoft, kind of thing. It's not something that I would bring out to a drop-in game, maybe private game. Shoot all my friends,
Yeah,
but definitely not something that you want to bring out on the skirmish. So it's
yeah,
like you got to be responsible too with your toys. So it's like if I were to bring something out that I wanted to play with, to run full auto, I'd probably, bring out like a combat machine or something like that. That way I know it's not, hitting high FPS ranges and stuff like that. So it's not going to hurt as much, or Crytek is another great example that you can use. It just sucks with us in Canada with the FPS restrictions because if you go below 366, it's essentially an illegal gun. So that's where we're limited to when it comes to that.
hmm, yep. We might have to touch base on this again later when we get some
Oh, we
comments from
will.
viewers on how they feel.
Yeah,
Honestly, if you
100%.
guys have any opinions on this, please, you know, or any of the topics that we covered, please leave a comment below. I think we've run through more than an hour and a half here of our
Well,
time.
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but
we
yeah,
don't want to bore you guys.
this is the Panther folding table talk. We're gonna try and do this on a bi-weekly basis, maybe
Mhm,
weekly. We'll see how it goes, depending on how busy it is for all of us.
mhm,
But we want to grab as much sort of topics as we talk about. Being that all three of us are like eyes and ears at the field at all times. If something comes up at the field that's like hotly debated, we'll talk about it. We'll talk
mhm.
about it. If it's something for BC related, airsoft related, we'll talk about it here as well. If you guys want us to talk about something, leave a comment below, and we'll talk about it as well. Um,
Anything scandalous or anything, we're always watching the forums. We try to keep our eyes out. So,
yeah, and yeah, we'll end the segment for this one. If you guys have any questions for us or anything like that, you could always reach us out in the field. I don't bite. Maybe these guys do. I don't know.
Mac bites. I don't.
Okay, there you go.
It's not hard.
Yeah. So there's like we said at the very beginning, there's no dumb questions. Ask away. We're always friendly at the field, and we'll leave it at that. So this is gonna be the end of the Panther folding table talk. My name is Poi. We got Tack down there, and then we got Mac. All right. You guys have anything else to say?
Nope. Other than that, we'll see you guys on the weekend.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll catch you in my sights.
All right. See ya.